Do you know the difference between these two sentences? She called me out in the meeting. She called out to me in the meeting. Both of these sentences use a similar looking but different phrasal verb. To call someone out, to call out to someone. Yes, they look very similar, almost identical, but they have completely different meanings. Today, you'll learn these phrasal verbs and 51 more. I personally use these 53 phrasal verbs every day. And adding these phrasal verbs to your vocabulary will help you understand natives and sound fluent and natural. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. First, let's talk about to call someone out. This means to confront or criticize someone, often publicly, for their actions or behaviors. She called him out for not keeping his promises. This means that in public, she said, you didn't keep your promise, and that was a bad thing. She called him out. Now, my students, maybe even you, always call me out when I make a typo. They publicly say, Jennifer, you spelled that wrong. Jennifer, this isn't correct. But that's okay. I don't mind.
Bert's calling me out? Oh, apparently.
Called him out loudly.
It's interesting to hear them call us out on that.
Now let's compare this to call out to someone. This means to shout or raise your voice to get someone's attention. Hey John, hey Mary. He called out to his friend across the street. He did this to get her or his attention. So now let's compare these. He called out his friend. This is grammatically correct. It means to publicly criticize. He called out to his friend. This is grammatically correct. It means he shouted to get his friend's attention. Hey, John. I know this is very confusing, so you'll want to review it. I provide everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's talk about jump in. When you jump in, it means you enter a conversation or a situation. So I could say to you, if we were in a class or a meeting, a live lesson, feel free to jump in with any ideas. I'm inviting you to stop me in the middle of my presentation to share your ideas. Or maybe managers are talking and say, it's nice to see Sarah jumping in at meetings. They're saying it's nice to see Sarah participating, sharing her ideas more actively. Maybe because she feels confident speaking in English.
I'm gonna jump in, so I want to make sure I get this one in and lighten it up just a minute.
Please feel free to jump in at any point.
Now, just like my examples show, this is generally used in a positive way. And that's important because let's compare that to butt in. Butt in. This means to interrupt or intrude into a conversation in a negative way. He kept butting in while I was presenting. He kept stopping me to say something, and I found this very rude.
Just butting in here for some side facts.
Or you could say, you should just butt out. Butt out. It's none of your business. So notice here, I changed butt in to butt out. This means you should stop intruding in something that doesn't concern you.
Butt out, Klaus.
So let's review. Jump or butt into a conversation, discussion, meeting, or situation. Notice you need into as one word if you specify the noun, a conversation. And butt out of a conversation, discussion, meeting, or situation. So remember the meaning and that structure. Next, let's talk about to come up with. This means to think of or create something, such as an idea, plan, or solution. They came up with a new marketing strategy. They thought of, they created.
Because Louis Pasteur came up with his technique for sterilizing milk in 1865.
I spend time every day coming up with new lessons for you. I think about ideas, I write them down, I brainstorm for you.
What'd you come up with?
So now let's change the preposition and talk about to come out with. This means to introduce or release something new, usually a product or service. The way we communicate changed when Apple came out with the iPhone.
If we were sitting down having this interview the day that Apple came out with the iPhone, you'd be asking me, really? They're going to compete with Motorola?
Electric typewriters then came out with self-contained correction ribbons so that you could make corrections right there on the machine as you typed.
Let's compare these together. Engineers at Apple came up with the idea of a smartphone in 2005. I don't know if that date is accurate. This means they thought of the idea. What if we had a phone? Now, Apple came out with the iPhone in 2007. That date is correct. This means they released the idea to the public as a product, the product being the iPhone. You could buy the iPhone. Let's review to back out of something. This means to decide not to do something you had previously agreed to. She backed out of the deal at the last minute.
Why are you backing out?
Or you said you were going to finish the English course. Don't back out now.
Don't even think about backing out, man.
Let's compare this to back something up. This means to make a copy of data to prevent loss, something you should do. For years, my husband told me I should back up my computer, but I didn't listen.
Didn't you back it up in your computer?
But now that I use Google Docs, my files are automatically backed up. A copy of my files are saved in a secure location. So always back up your computer and don't back out of things you said you were going to do.
Where do you back up your data?
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. To catch on to something. This is when you begin to understand or realize something. It took him a while, but he finally caught on to the joke. Now, you don't have to include the something if context is obvious. You could say, it took him a while, but he finally caught on, if you're talking about a joke and the context is obvious.
But she caught on pretty fast.
But either way, people caught on to coffee's advantages and began making tea from its leaves.
So let's talk about catch up to someone. This means to reach the same level or pace as someone else. She's driving too fast. We'll never catch up. You can say we'll never catch up or catch up to her. If you specify the someone, you need the preposition to.
Hurry! They're catching up!
Now let's look at this sentence. I need to catch up on my work so I can catch up to my coworker. When you catch up on something, it means you do the tasks that you missed or were not previously completed.
With students able to catch up on work over a coffee in the new cafe.
Let's talk about to get across. This means to successfully communicate or convey an idea to others. He tried to get his point across, to get something across, his point across in the meeting.
That'll get our point across, right?
Or, I'm not sure what you're trying to get across. Ooh, maybe you need to say it a different way.
Anyways, the point that I'm trying to get across is that social media has made everything just that much more accessible.
Number 12, I love this one, to cheer on. This is when you encourage or support someone, often vocally. Let's go, woohoo, you can do it. The fans cheered on their team. And I could say to you, if you leave a comment, that is your way of supporting me vocally. So I could say, thank you for cheering me on. I couldn't have done it without your support.
Who cheered us on and picked us up when we stumbled.
Someone will be there to cheer us on and pick us up if we fall.
Let's compare this to cheer up. This means to help someone feel happier or to become happier oneself. I brought him a coffee to cheer him up.
Cheer up. They try with considerable vigor to cheer us up.
Or let's combine these. The fact that you came to cheer me on, let's go Jennifer, that really cheered me up, made me happier. Number 14, carry on. Most students know this. This means to continue with an activity or task despite challenges. She decided to carry on with her studies despite the difficulties.
Carry on.
Let's compare this to carry out. This means to complete or perform an action plan or task. They carried out the experiment successfully.
And we carried it out as a family.
Let's combine these. Let's carry on with the experiments. Notice you need with when you specify the something. Let's carry on with the experiments. Have you carried out? Have you conducted the first test? So remember, you carry on with something and you carry something out. Number 16, to look into something. This means to investigate or examine something in detail. The company is looking into the issue.
I'll look into it.
Let's compare this to look over something. This means to review or examine something briefly or casually. She looked over the document before signing.
Look over this contract.
Let's combine these together. I looked into, I investigated, I looked into the company, and I didn't find any red flags. Red flags are potential risks or problems. I didn't find any red flags. I still need to look over, review the contract. Let's review to check in with someone. This means to communicate with someone to see how they're doing or if they need assistance. He checked in with his supervisor before leaving for the day. So how could he do this? Well, he would go up to his supervisor and say, "Do you need anything before I leave?"
Thanks for checking in, though.
Now let's compare this to check up on someone. This is when you monitor or observe someone's progress, condition, or behavior to ensure all is well. My dad had an accident, so I check up on him. I observe him and monitor him every day.
Would it kill him to check up on us?
Sometimes to check up on someone is seen as a negative because it suggests that you don't trust someone's abilities. So you often hear people complain and say, "Oh, my boss checks up on me every 5 minutes," suggesting your boss doesn't trust your abilities and needs to monitor you closely.
Are you checking up on me?
Number 20, hang out. You should know this one. This means to spend time with someone socially in a casual way. We hung out at home all weekend. Or it's very common to say to people, "Let's hang out soon. Let's spend time socially soon."
Cool, let's hang out tonight.
Don't confuse this with to hang up, which means to end a phone call. She hung up before they decided where to hang out.
Don't hang up, don't hang up, don't hang up, don't hang up.
22, to break up with someone. Do you know what this means? This means to end a romantic relationship. He broke up with his girlfriend last month.
Are you breaking up with me?
Now, you could also say we broke up. So in this case, because the subject is doing the action, you don't have to say with someone. We broke up. I broke up with him. He broke up with me. We broke up.
We broke up.
Don't confuse this with to break something up. This means to separate something into smaller parts. The teacher broke up the assignment into 3 parts.
From this point, we're going to take the life of the project and break it up into 4 phases so that we can discuss the processes that are appropriate to each.
So if you say, I broke her up, that sounds weird. That sounds like you divided her into smaller parts. But if you say, I broke up with her, that sounds sad. You ended your romantic relationship with her. Amazing job. Now let's keep going and you'll learn 15 more phrasal verbs in different everyday situations, like socializing with friends, having coffee at your favorite cafe, and sharing your ideas in a meeting. First, let's review the category of socializing and small talk. So imagine a native speaker walked up to you and said, "When did you take up yoga?" What's the phrasal verb here? When did you take up yoga? To take something up, this is the phrasal verb, and it means to start an activity. And you start it as a regular routine. So you don't just do yoga once. It sounds like you're going to do yoga every week or twice a week. Now remember, your phrasal verb is take up, but you need to conjugate that according to the subject and time reference. So maybe you could say, I've been thinking about, so about is a preposition. I've been thinking about taking up tennis again this summer. So starting tennis as a regular activity.
Honey, when did Peter Griffin take up jogging?
Or maybe someone says to you, don't take up the negative imperative. Don't take up another activity unless you have time for it. That's good advice.
I could take up yoga.
You have the body type.
Or maybe you're thinking, thankfully I found Jennifer's channel shortly after I took up learning English. Is that something that you're thinking? If it is, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's say you're talking to your coworker and you say, he always brings up politics at work. What's the phrasal verb here? To bring something up. This means to start talking about a topic. Maybe you can say, can we not bring up that topic at dinner tonight? So this is a way of asking to not discuss something. Can we not bring that up?
So stop bringing it up. It's not fair.
Or maybe you say, he keeps bringing up her trip. He's clearly impressed. He keeps talking about it.
Thanks, Wally, for bringing that up.
Let's review this sentence and where is the phrasal verb? She really got along with my cousin. Do you know this one? And notice sometimes phrasal verbs have 2 prepositions. So the phrasal verb here is to get along with someone. And this means to have a good relationship with someone. So you could ask, are you getting along with your new coworkers? Or maybe they would get along better if they communicated more. So notice that conditional structure, and would is a modal verb, and that's why you have the base verb following it. They would get along.
What is it? You two don't get along?
We get along just fine.
Now maybe your friend says to you, you'll never guess who I ran into today. This is a must-know phrasal verb. Do you know it? To run into someone. This means to meet someone but by chance. So you weren't planning on seeing that person.
It's nice to run into you.
You could say, if I run into her again, I'll say hi this time. So if I see her again, but by chance, or maybe I'll ask her for her phone number.
See, I ran into her at Target.
Or how about this one? I haven't run into anyone I know since I moved back home. So putting it in the negative means you're out in the world, getting groceries, going to the bank, but you haven't seen anyone you know. You haven't run into anyone. Now let's move on and imagine you're at a cafe, and let's review some common phrasal verbs. Maybe you go to order something and they say, sorry, we sold out of chocolate donuts, and you really wanted a chocolate donut. What's the phrasal verb here? Well, it's to sell out of something. So your verb is sell, and that's what you conjugate. And this means to have no more of something to sell to someone. So you could ask, do you think they'll sell out of those donuts again tomorrow?
They just sold out.
Already?
Or maybe, we're about to sell out, so grab one while you can. Now notice here the noun wasn't specified. We're about to sell out. If you specify the noun, that's when you add the additional preposition. We're about to sell out of donuts.
Sold out.
So they sold out of donuts, and you can say, I should cut back on sugar anyway. What's the phrasal verb here? To cut back on something. So notice again, we have that additional preposition on if you specify the something.
I think we need to cut back on our spending.
And if you cut back on something, you reduce the amount of something. So you could say, I've been cutting back on coffee lately. This is the present perfect continuous because it started in the past, maybe last Monday or last month, and it continues until now. I've been cutting back on coffee lately. It was giving me the jitters. This is the jitters. So this is why you need to cut back, reduce the amount. Or someone says to you, if you want to lose weight, I suggest cutting back on carbs. So reducing the amount of carbs. Now notice after suggest, you can use a gerund. I suggest cutting back on carbs.
We're not cutting back on food. Anything else?
Now you're still at the cafe and they say to you, we're trying out a new sugar-free cookie recipe. What's the phrasal verb here? To try out. This means to use or test something to see if it works well. For example, let's try out their new seasonal latte next time. Well, in this case, working well means you either like the taste of it or you don't like the taste of it, but you'll never know until you try it out.
Have you ever tried it out?
Or you can say after you try out the new blender, after you see how the blender works, let me know your thoughts. Was it a good blender, a bad one? Should I buy one? Do you recommend it? Let me know your thoughts. We're still at a cafe and you say to your friend, you only picked at your cookie. You don't like it? So the phrasal verb is to pick at, to pick at. If you pick at your cookie, it means you only eat a small amount of it. So we use this with food specifically. She picked at her salad, but barely touched the rest of her meal. So she ate a small amount of the salad. Maybe she didn't like it, or maybe she wasn't feeling well, she wasn't hungry. Who knows the reason? Or you can say, I was in a Zoom meeting over lunch and could only pick at my sandwich. Because you're on camera, you don't want to eat a big sandwich, so you just try to take a little bite whenever you can.
No, thank you. I'll just pick at yours.
Let's talk about phrasal verbs you can use with meetings and appointments. Someone could ask you, can we set up a meeting for next week? The phrasal verb here is to set up. And of course, this means to schedule or arrange. You can say, I'll be setting up a few interviews this afternoon.
The interview's already set up.
Or you can ask, did you already set up the call with the designer? Did you schedule the call? Did you set it up?
Set up a meeting.
Or if someone asks you, please follow up with us next week. This is a must-know phrasal verb. It's to follow up. Now you can continue on and say with someone, on or about something. So if you specify the reason why, you can use the preposition on or about. It doesn't matter which one you use, and native speakers use both equally. Now this means to continue a previous conversation. For example, I was supposed to follow up yesterday, but I forgot. I was supposed to call you to discuss something we previously discussed. Now remember, you can also say, I was supposed to follow up with you on the report or about the report yesterday, but I forgot.
I'm just following up on a chat room message.
Or you can say, it's been 3 days and they haven't responded. Should I follow up or should I wait? So should I continue that discussion we previously had? Or should I wait?
It's too soon.
Maybe your boss asks you, have you checked in with the client yet? What's the phrasal verb here? It's to check in with someone, and again, you can use on or about something. This means to contact someone, and you're doing that to make sure there are no problems. For example, don't forget to check in with them, maybe it's the clients or your team, before you go on vacation. So contact them to make sure they understand everything, they can access everything, there are no problems. Now again, remember, you can say don't forget to check in with them on the invoice or about the invoice before you go on vacation. Contact them to make sure there are no problems with the invoice.
If anyone finds anything, check in with me.
Let's review this sentence. My boss checks in with me every hour. It's annoying. We often use this with frustration because your boss contacts you every hour to make sure there are no problems.
Check back in with me in July.
Now remember that phrasal verbs have different meanings depending on context. So if you're at a hotel and someone says, don't forget to check in before noon.
Checking in.
Yeah, we're checking in.
This means register your arrival at a hotel. But if you're in a meeting and someone says, don't forget to check in before noon, it means to contact someone to make sure there are no issues. So you have to understand the context to know the meaning of phrasal verbs. How about this sentence? I blocked off an hour for our meeting. What's the phrasal verb? To block off. And this means to reserve time in your schedule. So someone might ask, should we block off some time on Friday? Should we reserve some time? Or you can say, I'm blocking off tomorrow afternoon to catch up on emails. So in your calendar, no one will be able to schedule time with you because you blocked it off.
I will block off the afternoon.
Now let's talk about giving compliments. How about this sentence? That outfit really brings out your eyes.
Brown one brings out your eyes.
What's the phrasal verb here? To bring out. Now remember, we previously learned to bring up. So also notice that changing the preposition can completely change the meaning. So here, to bring out, it means to emphasize, highlight, or make something more noticeable or attractive. So I could say to you as a compliment, words of praise, encouragement, support, great choice. That frame brings out the colors in the photo. Or I can say your confidence is starting to bring out the best in your team. So it's highlighting, emphasizing the best qualities. Let's review this sentence. I want to point out how well you handled that irate customer. What's an irate customer? An angry customer, an upset customer. And what's the phrasal verb here? To point out. This means to bring attention to something. For example, you've been doing such a great job lately, and I just wanted to point that out. I wanted to point that out. I wanted to emphasize that. So that would be a very nice thing to say to someone or say in a meeting to someone as well.
Thank you, Amy, for pointing that out.
You're so welcome.
Or you could say, I appreciated that you pointed out how much my design skills have improved. So you can offer this as words of appreciation to someone. This next phrasal verb is a very positive thing to say to someone. You've really stepped up lately.
Thanks for stepping up today.
The phrasal verb is to step up. This means to take on more responsibility, or it can mean to improve one's performance.
I'm thinking about stepping it up.
So your boss might say, I noticed how you stepped up when the deadline was moved. I just wanted to point out the great leadership you showed. Or you can say, she's been stepping up in every way since Peter quit. So maybe she had to take on more responsibility because Peter quit, or she improved her performance because Peter quit, but she really stepped up. Think of all the phrasal verbs you've learned. Now, let's keep going and you'll learn how to take regular verbs like hold and change them into phrasal verbs like hold off. First, let's talk about the regular verb hold. You know what this means, right? To grasp or carry something in one's hand. But what about the phrasal verb to hold off? Do you know what this means? This means to delay or postpone something. Should we sign the contract? Your coworker might ask, and you can say, let's hold off. Now, you can end there, it's a complete sentence, or you can continue back and commonly use the word until. Let's hold off until we hear back from HR. Now, you can also be more precise and describe the action. You would add an additional preposition. Let's hold off on signing the contract until we get more details.
These 10 counties decided to hold off and wait until 2018 to launch their exhibit.
Now, of course, you can put this in the negative. Don't postpone, don't delay. For example, don't hold off on improving, notice that gerund verb because on is a preposition, on improving your English. Do you agree with that advice? If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's review one sentence that includes both the regular verb and the phrasal verb. Can you think of your own sentence? Here's mine. Let's hold a meeting to discuss holding off on the project. Don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's talk about the verb put. Of course, you know that means to place something in a specific position. But what about put off when we turn this into the phrasal verb? This also means to postpone or delay something. For example, they put off something, the wedding, until next year.
I told her it was stupid to put off the wedding just because the hall was gone and she flipped out.
Now, I'm sure you're wondering, but Jennifer, what's the difference between hold off and put off? Great question. Hold off generally is used when you're delaying because you're waiting for more information. But put off is more general. It can be for any reason. For example, they put off getting married. Now notice all of phrasal verbs use prepositions, so your verb that follows is in the ing form, the gerund form. They put off getting married until next year. This is just in general. They're not waiting for more information. It could be for any reason. Now our sentence that combines both. For example, we put off cleaning the garage, we delayed, until next week. Remember, you can use that word until. But we did put the books on the shelf. Can you think of a better one? Now let's talk about the verb pull. Of course, that's exert force to move something closer. But what about pull off? You probably know this one, it's very common. If you pull something off, it means to succeed in achieving something difficult. And that's important, it has to be something difficult. For example, he pulled off something, an incredible victory. So it implies it was difficult. Now we often use this after we do something successful, but it was difficult. I can't believe we pulled it off. So maybe you had a very tight deadline. You didn't think you could achieve it, but you did.
Wow, we pulled it off.
Now let's try one sentence using both. She pulled the chair closer as I told her how I pulled off improving my speaking skills in only 30 days. That's definitely something difficult, right? Can you pull it off? I'm here to help. Now, of course, the verb break means to separate something into pieces by force. What about break off, the phrasal verb? This means to suddenly stop or end something. This is often used with relationships, agreements, or conversations. For example, I can't believe she broke off her engagement. So she was engaged, which means she agreed to get married, but then she broke it off. She ended the engagement. She's no longer going to get married.
Obviously, I felt it deep enough to break off my engagement, change my entire life, and tell all of you.
Now, if it's obvious that you're talking about her engagement, you can say, I can't believe she broke it off. So you can use the pronoun it to replace engagement. Now let's try both in one sentence. You broke my heart by breaking off our engagement. Of course, the verb call means to contact someone by phone, but what about call off? This means to cancel an event. So an event could be a meeting. They called off the meeting. They canceled it.
With the rise of jihadist violence, they began to receive threats to call off their events, which they refused to heed.
Now again, you might be wondering what's the difference between break off and call off. Well, break off is with relationships or agreements. They're personal and emotional, like an engagement. But call off is used with events. These can be business events or community events. So you can say, we broke off our engagement. We ended our engagement. But you can say we called off the wedding because the wedding is an event. So you can say we canceled the wedding. We called off the wedding. Now let's try one sentence with both. She called her friend to let her know that the organizers called off, canceled the event. Of course, the verb cut means to divide or remove something using a sharp tool. What about cut off? Well, this is when you interrupt or stop someone or something abruptly. For example, she cut me off in the middle of my story. So I was talking and then she said, oh, I want to tell you something. She cut me off.
So I started to say that and she just cut me right off.
Notice in the clip, Obama said, she just cut me right off. Using right is there for emphasis. It's emphasizing the fact that Barack was cut off. Now, you can use this more politely and say, sorry to cut you off, but I accidentally cut the ribbon too short. So notice that one sentence used both. Now, the regular verb drop is when you let something fall on purpose or accidentally. But what about drop off? You know this one, right? This is when you deliver something or someone to a location. For example, you can say to your friend or your sister, I'll drop you off at the station. Now, you could ask, when is the package being dropped off? Notice this is the passive voice because the package is receiving the action, not doing the action. Let's try one with both. She dropped her pen as she dropped off the reports. The regular verb get, of course, means to obtain or receive something. What about get off? You definitely need to know this one. It means to exit a form of transportation. It can also mean end work for the day. Both of these are very commonly used. You can ask, where do we get off? Now, this would be for transportation. Where do we get off? The train, subway, bus, plane, or boat?
That means you will probably be running late when you get off the train.
But we do not use this with car or van or truck. You would say, please get out of my car to mean exit. Now, you can also ask, what time do you get off? This means what time do you get off work, but you don't need to add the word work. And it means what time do you finish working for the day? What time do you get off? Now let's try one sentence with both. He got some advice, he received some advice from a stranger before he got off the train, before he left the train. Now, of course, the regular verb give is to offer or present something to someone, but what about give off? Ooh. This isn't the most common, but it is useful to know. This means to emit or produce something such as light, heat, or a smell. For example, the fire gave off a lot of smoke. So the fire emitted, produced a lot of smoke.
All things that gave off heat were part of an irreversible process that was happening everywhere.
You can use this in a more positive way. The candles gave off a warm glow as she gave a heartfelt speech. So notice I used both in that one sentence. Now, of course, the verb go means to move from one place to another. What about go off? If something goes off, it means it activates or suddenly makes noise. This is commonly used with alarms and detectors. So you hear this every day, I imagine. But what if you say, oh no, my alarm started going off at midnight? So for some reason, your alarm activated, produced noise at midnight.
I set an alarm, the alarm went off, I did get out of bed, but then I snoozed it.
Or someone might say, open the window before the smoke detector goes off, before the smoke detector activates. Now let's try one sentence with both. Let's go outside until the alarm stops going off. So notice, stops going off. Let's talk about keep. Of course, that means to retain or maintain something. But what about keep off? This means to avoid stepping on or using something. I automatically think of signs that I commonly see that say, please keep off the grass. Please do not step on the grass. I also see signs that say, please keep your pets off the grass. Because, of course, pets can damage it.
And so they got to the tomb of the unknown soldier, and there was a sign that said, keep off the grass. And they thought, dare we?
Now let's look at one sentence with both. She kept off the muddy path, so she didn't go on. She kept off the muddy path to keep her shoes dry. The regular verb let means to allow or permit. What about let off? I really like this phrasal verb. This means to excuse someone from punishment or responsibility. For example, the judge let him off. This means the judge did not punish him. Maybe she gave him a warning. So you could continue that thought and say the judge let him off with a warning. So you add that additional preposition with and then something, a warning. So he received a warning instead of punishment.
She was not going to let me off the hook. And at the time, I wasn't happy about it, but now I'm glad she pressed me like that.
Did you notice that Barack added a few additional words? She wasn't going to let me off the hook. So you could say my boss let me off the hook. So you just add the two words the hook. This means my boss didn't punish me even though I deserved it. So it's a positive thing for me. Let's try one sentence with both. I let my brother borrow my car and he got a parking ticket. Thankfully, the officer let me off, didn't punish me, when I told him it was my brother's fault. So I threw my brother under the bus. Now let's talk about kick. This means, of course, to strike with the foot, but what about kick off? Do you know this one? This means to start an event or an activity. This is commonly used with sports. The game kicked off at 7 p.m. The game started. Or you can ask, when are we kicking off the project? This is commonly used in a business context. It means, when are we starting the project?
And they're very non-digital people, but it's almost like kicking off a discussion.
So let's look at one sentence with both. She kicked the ball to kick off the game, which is where this phrasal verb comes from. The verb rip means to tear something apart forcefully, but what about rip off? Native speakers use this a lot. This means to cheat or overcharge someone. She totally ripped me off. She told me this is a real Louis Vuitton bag. So she cheated me. I paid a lot of money for the bag and it was a fake.
Well, I hope he made a mistake because he ripped me off, so I hope he got ripped off.
Now, we commonly use this with the verb feel. So ripped off is in the ed form, which means it's being used as an adjective. I feel ripped off every time I buy food at the airport, which is true. I feel like I'm being cheated. Now, you can also say $5 for a bottle of water. What a ripoff. So notice here, a ripoff, this is the noun form. So get comfortable with the different forms, the active verb, the adjective form, and the noun form. Let's look at one example using both, and we'll use the active verb. The store ripped her off. The store cheated her, claiming she ripped her jeans on purpose and therefore couldn't return them. Of course, the verb run means to move quickly on foot. What about run off? This has a similar meaning. This means to leave suddenly, often to escape. And the people are usually running when they run off. But it's not a requirement. They can run off in a car, for example, because it's just leave suddenly. So you can say, I can't believe Ross ran off with his family's savings. So Ross left suddenly and he took his family's savings. So often this is used in a very negative way.
And our middleman, long story short, ran off with our money. Oh no. And we never heard from him again.
Or you can say, I can't believe Ross ran off with his boss's wife, which is how this is also commonly used. So two people who usually shouldn't be together leave suddenly, and they leave their partners behind.
My wife ran off with my business partner after embezzling $1 million from my frozen yogurt franchise.
So let's use one sentence with both. She ran after the thief when she saw him running off with a stolen bag. Now you have 15 new phrasal verbs in your vocabulary. Do you want me to keep helping you learn phrasal verbs? If you do, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And you can keep improving your English with this lesson right now.